Malaysia and Singapore, located in Southeast Asia and positioned near the equator on similar longitudes, have time zones that might seem mismatched at first glance. Although both follow the same UTC offset of +8 with Malaysia Standard Time or MST and Singapore using Singapore Standard Time or SST. Their timekeeping is influenced by various historical and administrative reasons. This shared time zone, despite its geographical similarity, does not always align with the nuances of timekeeping in the region. Geographically speaking, both countries are positioned along the same longitude, meaning they should in theory use the same local time. Singapore lies just to the south of Malaysia, and since both countries are near the equator, they experience similar day lengths year-round. The sunrise and sunset times are almost identical for both nations, which would suggest that using the same time zone would make sense. But despite these geographical factors, historical and administrative decisions have led to the creation of separate standard time zones. The time zone practices in Malaysia and Singapore today are significantly influenced by their shared British colonial history. In the 19th century, when both territories were under British rule, the British established time zones to meet their logistical needs and to support their expansive global empire. During this time, the British Empire's influence over trade, especially in Southeast Asia, grew, with ports such as Singapore and cities in Malaya becoming key commercial centers. To make operations more efficient, especially in maritime trade, the British decided to align the timekeeping of their colonies with the time zones of other important trading cities, such as Hong Kong and Shanghai. These cities were crucial parts of the British commercial network, and coordinating time across these locations helped streamline shipping schedules, communication, and trade. As a result, UTC +8 was adopted in the Strait settlements, which included Singapore, and later in Malaya, aligning them with the time zones of other British-controlled ports in Asia. This decision to use UTC +8 was not primarily based on geographical considerations, but rather on the practical need to integrate the British colonies into a larger colonial and commercial system. By doing so, the British ensured that the time in Singapore and Malaya matched that of other key ports along the same longitude, making it easier to move goods and services across the region efficiently. This historical choice laid the groundwork for the time zone that both Malaysia and Singapore still use today, despite their independence and the geographical proximity of the two nations. After gaining independence, Malaysia and Singapore both decided to keep their existing time zones for several important reasons. Their choice to stick with UTC +8 was based on practical, economic, and diplomatic factors. This decision allowed them to maintain stability and integration with the region, while avoiding the complications that would have come with switching to UTC +7, a time zone closer to that of some other Southeast Asian nations. One of the main reasons for keeping the UTC +8 zone was the infrastructure already built around it. For years, businesses, government offices, and essential services in both Malaysia and Singapore had been operating on this schedule. Changing to UTC +7 would have caused major disruptions, forcing the countries to make costly adjustments in various sectors, from finance to telecommunications. For Singapore, which is known as a global financial center, sticking with UTC +8 made sense from an operational standpoint. The country's financial market, including the Singapore Stock Exchange, were synchronized with key markets in East Asia and Australia, where UTC plus 8 is the standard. A switch to UTC plus 7 could have isolated Singapore's financial institutions, making it difficult to coordinate with important business partners and potentially weakening its competitive position in the region. Another key reason for keeping UTC plus 8 was the close economic ties both Malaysia and Singapore have with China, one of their largest trading partners. By maintaining the same time zone as China, both countries were able to benefit from smoother trade and investment flows. This time zone alignment made it easier for businesses in both nations to carry out operations without facing the difficulties that would come with having a significant time difference. It helped improve the efficiency of trade, manufacturing, and logistics, which were essential for the economic growth of both countries. In the case of Malaysia, maintaining UTC plus 8 also helped preserve strong trade relationships with other important Southeast Asian nations, such as Indonesia, Thailand, and the Philippines. These countries also follow similar zones, which allowed for more seamless coordination in sectors like tourism, agriculture, and manufacturing. From a political standpoint, keeping UTC plus 8 helped Malaysia and Singapore avoid confusion in their international relations. After gaining independence, both nations wanted to establish themselves as stable and reliable members of the global community. Changing the time zone would have complicated their diplomatic ties, especially with other ASEAN countries, most of which operated in the UTC plus 7 to plus 8 time zone range. Furthermore, by sticking with the UTC plus 8 time zone, both Malaysia and Singapore continued to align with their economic interests, especially in Singapore, which relied heavily on foreign investments for its growth. Switching to UTC plus 7 could have made Singapore less attractive to international businesses who were accustomed to the existing time zone structure in the Asia Pacific. The decision for Malaysia and Singapore to synchronize their time zone, despite natural discrepancies, has sparked both practical benefits and social criticisms. This alignment was primarily implemented due to the close economic and social ties between the two nations, but it has also raised concerns about its effects on people's natural body rhythms and its broader implications for the ASEAN region. One of the key criticisms of this time zone alignment is that it does not align with the natural cycle of daylight and darkness. In Kuala Lumpur, for example, which is located in the western part of Malaysia, the sun rises around 7 a.m., but the clock shows 8 a.m. This creates what some critics describe as an artificial discrepancy, where the time zone does not reflect the actual natural progression of the day. This misalignment can cause discomfort for many people, especially those who rely on natural light as a guide for their daily routines, such as farmers, students, or people who work outdoors. For these individuals, the shift can disrupt their internal body clocks, leading to feelings of fatigue, trouble sleeping, or lack of energy during the day. The issue becomes especially noticeable in the early morning when people naturally wake up with the sun, with the clock showing an hour later than it should. Economically, the time zone alignment between Singapore and Malaysia makes a lot of sense. Both countries share similar trade patterns, cultural connections, and business operations. In terms of social interactions, many people living near the border between Malaysia and Singapore frequently commute between the two countries or work in one country while residing in the other. The synchronized time zone simplifies their daily routines as they don't have to adjust to a time difference when traveling between the two. But despite these advantages, this time zone alignment is viewed by some as out of place in the broader ASEAN region. ASEAN is made up of countries that span multiple time zones, such as Indonesia, the Philippines, and Thailand, all of which operate in different time zones from Malaysia and Singapore. As a result, businesses that operate across these countries often face the challenge of managing multiple time differences. Some critics argue that by choosing to align their time zone, Singapore and Malaysia are imposing an artificial standard that could create further obstacles for businesses and individuals operating across the ASEAN region. For example, companies that do business in both Singapore and countries like Vietnam or the Philippines may face difficulties when trying to coordinate meetings or shipments across time zones. Let us know what you think in the comment section.